Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. I am here today to assess and analyse Chris Chibnall's era of Doctor Who. I'm going to try and be very, very impartial and very balanced about my views about this era. So we're not just here to hate on it and be toxic about it, because there are some good things within the Chibnall era. Now, I am 50 years old, so growing up, I saw predominantly male-led storytelling within television and film, where women were either housewives or love interests. Now and again, as I was growing up and becoming a teenager, I saw some fantastic representation of minorities and women in stories in both television and film. We had Jodie Foster's Sarah Tobias and Starling. We had Sigourney Weaver's Ripley. We had Maggie Forbes in The Gentle Touch. There were many, many times where we saw great representation for women and superior representation for women and minorities. Eddie Murphy's Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy's Anything growing up, great representation, seeing a black man being more than someone who's just, a criminal, a pickpocket, a thief, a murderer. So we did get times where we saw great representation for minorities and actually great social commentary in stories. Now, despite the myth, sometimes we had great representation for women in classic Who. We had Tegan, we had Ace, and there was quite a few good kind of inclusive representatives of strong females in Doctor Who. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of minorities being represented properly in classic Who, because that's the era we were in. It simply didn't happen. So in the revival of Doctor Who, we've had lots of great, examples of great representation for minorities and women. Billie Piper's Rose Tyler is kind of inspired by Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She's a 19-year-old girl living in a council estate, being brought up by her mother because her father died when she was a small girl. She's sick to death of reality, the mundaneness of going to work. She's looking for something. Her boyfriend doesn't really value her. He just wants to go down the pub. He's looking at porn on the internet. He's probably got kind of sexting with people on his emails, because he says to Rose, "Don't look at my emails." Now, Mickey is a young black man, but again, you don't get the poor stereotype of a black man. When we come back to Mickey later on in the series, we find out he's good with computers, he's kind of intelligent, he's got a good heart, and he's got a good soul. So many good representations of minorities. A gay actor playing a character like Captain Jack, who I found really inspirational. So we do have some really good, representations of females in the revival as well. And so I'm not from the kind of school of thought that the Doctor can't be played by a black man, a black woman, or a woman. The Doctor can literally regenerate into anything or anyone at any time. And these are the facts of this concept, and there's nothing wrong with that concept. Chris Chibnall cast someone he already worked with. So the spanning of the audition process was very, very small. But the problem is, it doesn't matter which woman he cast in the role, he would have represented her badly as the first female Doctor. And I'm sorry, Chris, you did. You did represent the first female Doctor badly. She wasn't the most intelligent person in the room, looking to her sonic screwdriver constantly for answers. More than any other of the male Doctors, she didn't feel intelligent. She didn't feel like she had the knowledge of the universe. She lacked personality. She was this smiley, positive soul, and she didn't have any flaws. She was flawless. Now, anyone who knows anything about this character of the Doctor, he or she or whoever have been one of the most flawed characters in storytelling history, and certainly sci-fi storytelling history. Jodie's Doctor was flawless. She didn't have any character traits. They tried to say, I think, what was it she liked? I can't remember now, custard creams, and that was suddenly thrown in there. So first of all, let's look at Jodie's introduction into Doctor Who, the woman who fell to earth. Now, clearly, he wants to really hit you over the head with a hammer that the new Doctor is a female, the woman who fell to earth. The marketing was about breaking that the glass ceiling. So there was, already they really wanted to hit that home. Now, in Jodie's opening press release, she told men not to be afraid of her and her gender, and that she was a feminist. Probably not the best ways to introduce herself into the fandom, considering there was a predominant members of this fandom who felt we should never have a female Doctor. I do not agree with those people. I disagree with that opinion wholeheartedly, but neither did I pray to my God. I don't even have a God. My God is Superman. That's why I'm wearing this top. Or beg for a female version of this character. But I was okay with us having a female Doctor. Now, the BBC, the Radio Times, and many people called the fans sexists and misogynists. But let me ask who the sexist and misogynist is, Chris. When you give us a Doctor with no personality, no flaws, no character traits apart from liking custard creams, and no intelligence. Considering this is one of the most intelligent characters on television or film since Sherlock Holmes himself, this actor is not portraying the Doctor as the Doctor should be portrayed. I find this very sexist if you're saying the female Doctor isn't intelligent, she isn't funny, and she doesn't even have any character traits or any personality. If we jump to his companions, we have, I think, an Anglo-Indian companion. I think that's Yaz's background. We have a black male companion, and we have Bradley Walsh. Now, Bradley Walsh, if you've ever met him, he's got bags of personality. The man, the gentleman, the lad is so funny. He took all that away from Bradley's character that he was playing, Graham. Once you make Bradley Walsh boring, you really have failed in everything that you're attempting to do. And this is the problem with progressive entertainment today. Because even though I'm 50 and when I was growing up, women were predominantly, housewives, girlfriends, love interests, not very intelligent, wearing short skirts and low-cut tops. We also saw that a lot in classic Who. When the industry, when I was growing up, did decide to represent women and minorities in the right way, they really did it properly, as did Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat. Let's look at his first female master, Missy. This woman, basically shouts out to you personality, intelligence, and character. Michelle Gomez killed it. Moffat did get some things wrong with his era of Doctor Who, but Missy wasn't one of them. Missy is everything that the first female Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, should have been, and she wasn't. I do feel bad for Jodie Whittaker. It's clear her opening press release wasn't penned by her, and none of that was from her mouth. That was from the BBC publicity department, and they got it wrong. Chris Chibnal got his Doctor wrong. He got his minority companions wrong. He didn't inject any personality in any of these characters. Now, if we go back to the woman who fell to earth, I actually felt in that one, Jodie felt more like the Doctor than she ever did going forward. I believe it's the progressives' opinion. Let's launch her as the Doctor, then we can take that away from her. once we trick them into thinking that we really actually want to do a great first female Doctor, because they feel women should be flawless. They feel that women should have no fault to their characters. And this is why the first female Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, is this way. He got it wrong. Her first episode had a record amount of viewers and ratings. It was a success. But then slowly but surely, viewers went away. They couldn't sell her merch. Doctor Who became a kind of IP, not making any money. Doctor Who by Russell T Davies, many revivals fail from the beginning. But Russell T Davies knew what he was doing. We look at the Quantum Leap revival, it's a box ticking exercise rather than telling a great story about someone who's traveling through time, becoming different people. When you think about it, we've got an Asian actor playing, is it Dr. Benjamin Song, and you're not representing that Asian actor and that Asian character in the right way. It comes across as stereotypical, it comes across as insulting, and this industry continues to act like they're doing women and minorities a favour. You should be including them, but include them the right way. How do we do this as writers and creatives? We don't think of the colour of their skin, where they're from, what they look like, what they've got down their trousers or skirts, right? We think about them as people. And whether you like it or not, gay, transgender people, women and minorities are individuals. You can't just have them as a group of people and stereotype them. And there was a lot of stereotypes when I was growing up. Now, progressive entertainment are doing basically the same thing, because they have these rules and regulations how to represent minorities and women. And this is where it's seriously lacking today. And Doctor Who ended up being dull and boring, because even if your episodes are not any good, if you've got characters full of verve, personality and an intelligent Doctor, then you've got something special on your hands and you can get away with lesser episodes. Now, what I feel Chris was attempting to do with his era of Doctor Who was try and go back to the original series with Bill Hartnell with 3 companions. The problem is his pacing was the same as the original Doctor Who series, but we're talking about 1963, the 20th century. Jodie's Doctor, the Chris Chibnal era, is in the 21st century. And Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies got us used to the fast pacing of a revived Doctor Who, because Russell brought Doctor Who kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Now, whether or not you predominant classic fans like that or not, we are in the 21st century and you do need it to be epic. And I know a lot of you believe Doctor Who shouldn't be epic, that Star Trek shouldn't be epic. But in the 21st century, you need that element to those IPs, whether you like it or not. So Russell certainly knew exactly what he was doing, and suddenly Doctor Who was a mainstream character rather than a character that only some people, some nerds and geeks were interested in back in the 60s, 70s and 80s. So this was his mistake. I understand what he was attempting to do. He didn't want to use any classic monsters. He wanted to be original. And that's good. That's a brave thing to do, but you've got to be able to pull it off. So I felt Jodie felt like the Doctor in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and the second episode, whose title I forgot. Then slowly but surely, we got to Arachnids in the UK, where she simply didn't feel like the Doctor, and he decided to introduce an American character who pretty much echoed Donald Trump in every shape, and shape and form. And this is what progressives try to do, and it ends up coming across badly. So what was the good stuff about Chris Chibnall's era of Doctor Who? The production, the directing, the cinematography. It was beautiful. The music was beautiful. I'm not going to say the music's the best it's ever been, because it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not Murray Gold. but still, that composer of the Chibnall era did a really good job. So those elements of Doctor Who were great. But in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, he started hinting about the timeless child. Now, when we got to the timeless children, it was revealed that the Doctor wasn't from Gallifrey, that she'd already regenerated so many times into kind of an Indian girl, a black girl, some small boys, kind of all shapes or forms. Now, this was Chris trying to correct the situation of classic Who not representing minorities that much or that well. But you can't rewrite history. Now, in terms of the timeless children, when I wasn't triggered at all by this. I thought it was a very interesting story that I expected to be expanded upon. Chris Chibnall later on, after Flux, said he had no intention of expanding on the timeless child, which makes it the biggest of hot takes in storytelling and television history. I believe he meant to expand on it, but he wasn't allowed to by the BBC after the reaction. They got scared because Doctor Who is on your television to make money. And the money it was making in the RTD era with merchandise, videos, DVDs, going on the BBC Doctor Who website, it was huge. Doctor Who wasn't huge. Empires are destroyed from within. He also introduced an amazing version of the Doctor called Ruth, titled The Fugitive Doctor. I was looking forward to him expanding on this Doctor. He again didn't expand on this Doctor. When we saw her again, she was just an image. She was a mirage in the power of the Doctor and not the character we saw in Fugitive of the Judoon. A brilliant episode that creates this brilliant mystery box. And we all kind of interluded that she came after Patrick Troughton for a short time. But that was never confirmed. But the BBC think it's okay that she's been chucked, like yesterday's garbage, onto Big Finish. That simply isn't good enough. You should have at least expanded on her. Now, I understand COVID didn't help Chris Chibnall very much on being able to do another season, so we had the Flux, which I think was okay, but again, had the usual Chris Chibnall problems. Kind of tried to expand a little bit on the Timeless Child, but not much. I was waiting until the power of the Doctor in case he gave us some answers to the Timeless Child and the Fugitive Doctor questions. He did not. Ultimately, the power of the Doctor is probably my favourite episode from the Chibnall era. It's very exciting, it's very epic. I think the Master in the Chibnall era is the best thing about his era. I think, Dewan is sensational, and I'm one of those people saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Why can't RTD keep him? He probably won't keep him, but I personally think that he should, because he's absolutely amazing. As I say, the best thing. We have this kind of situation with Yaz and the Doctor. Now, it's not like we haven't had a love story in the revival of Doctor Who before. We had Rose and the Doctor. That was done impeccably well. It wasn't for everyone, but it did have depth and emotion to it. It's clear that Chibnall never meant to have a love story between Yaz and the Doctor, but saw the internet wanted one, and belatedly he tried to introduce a half-hearted one, and you never could tell. You could tell that Yaz is up for it, but you could never tell if the Doctor was in love with Yaz. If you wanted to do this, Chris, you could have done this from The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Yaz's motivations, not just with being in love with the Doctor, were mixed. She was a young police cadet, I think. She wanted to make a difference, but that wasn't, continued with. Ryan's dyspraxia was forgotten about. 1 minute he had problems, he needed confidence in his balance, and then they forgot all about that he had problems with his balance. Dyspraxia is a very rare condition. I've never researched it, I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that Chibnall just forgot about it and threw it away. These things are happening all the time. he seemed to be very lazy with character development. In terms of Graham, Graham was a cancer survivor. So when I first saw the first episode, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if they did a John Locke from Lost, where he's he's a man of faith and the doctor's a woman of science, and they clash over these, these different kind of beliefs. But that would take depth and character development, something unfortunately Chris doesn't believe in. The Chibnal era of Doctor Who tried to tell us that we wanted to be diverse and representative of different corners of the world, and obviously women and men. So when he fired most of Chibnall's and RTD's crew, he tried to display this. But it's a myth. And, in the show, they tried to show some representation. Doctor Who is a show that believes via the BBC that the Doctor can only be played by a British actor, and the showrunners can only be British, rejecting people like Peter Jackson as a showrunner. This is a thing. So their representation and their inclusion is a myth. Yes, they're a group of hypocrites. If you look at the people who have run Doctor Who thus far, Russell T Davies, Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall, who are all friends, all Doctor Who fans, part of the same country club. This includes people like Mark Gatiss as well. So that's not very representative of the world we live in today. Now, I'm not suggesting you bring an inclusive hire as a showrunner, someone who's not British or a woman or a black person, just to say you're representative. But when someone like Peter Jackson presents themselves to you, you can't be saying, sorry, dude, you're not British. First of all, that is bigoted, racist, and against everything they claim to stand for. So, Russell was very proud to announce a black gay doctor. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. Ncuti Gatwa is very popular with the youth of today with Sex Education over on Netflix. He's a very talented young man, and I think he's going to be a great doctor. Also, I think Russell T Davies could make a vagrant off the streets a great doctor. Why is Russell T Davies back? Russell T Davies is back because Doctor Who is broken thanks to Chris Chibnall. And this is where we are. So what is the Chris Chibnall era to me? The loss of potential. The potential was there. He clearly did a great job with Broadchurch season 1. I think he fell away with the other 2 seasons, but he did create something special in Broadchurch. The thing is, when you're doing crime dramas like Broadchurch and Law and Order, your characters can be colder. And, your character, you don't need character development to do a crime drama. That's the difference. Now, I think he did a pretty solid job running Torchwood. What happened with Doctor Who, he was in complete control, and there was no one to dial him back and remind him what Doctor Who was. You can have a female doctor, you can have a black doctor. That isn't the issue, and it shouldn't be the issue. But you do these minorities and this gender of women a disservice when you don't give them personality and intellect and a depth of character. When you don't include these things in, you become the very thing you accuse your consumer of. This has been Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.